I didn't realize how hard pretending could be until Kyle and I made it our full-time job. The worst part wasn't the silence. It was the normalcy. The way everything looked exactly the same on the surface, even though something underneath had shifted so much it felt dangerous to breathe too deeply. It started on a Tuesday night, which is still funny to me, because nothing life-changing is ever supposed to happen on a Tuesday. Kyle was sitting across from me at our tiny kitchen table, legs stretched out, one foot hooked around the leg of the chair like always. He was scrolling on his phone, half listening as I complained about my boss, nodding at the right moments. We'd done this 100 times before, except this time, when he looked up, he didn't look away right away. There was a pause, barely a second, but long enough for my chest to tighten. I remember thinking, "Don't be stupid, Aaron. He's just tired. You're projecting. You always do this." Kyle finally smirked and said, "You gonna quit? Or just complain forever?" And just like that, the moment vanished. I laughed, flipped him off, got up to grab a beer. Normal, easy, safe. That became our pattern. Because a few days earlier, something had happened. Not something big or obvious. No drunken confession. No kiss. Nothing you could point to and say that's where it all went wrong. It was just a look. We'd been coming back from the gym, both of us sweaty, tired, joking about how we'd absolutely destroyed chest day even though neither of us could lift our arms properly. Kyle tossed me a towel, our fingers brushed, and he didn't pull his hand away. I looked at him. He was already looking at me. For half a second, the air felt thick, like the room before a storm breaks. Then he cleared his throat and said, "You good?" And I said, "Yeah, you." And that was it. Except it wasn't. After that, everything became hyper-aware. The way he'd sit a little closer on the couch. The way I'd suddenly notice how broad his shoulders looked when he leaned over the counter. The way we both started avoiding eye contact at the exact same time. And still, we pretended. Kyle talked about girls from work like nothing had changed. I nodded, asked questions, played my part. I told him about dates that went nowhere. He listened, gave advice, called the guys idiots for not appreciating me. We were best friends. Roommates. Two guys just living their lives. Except at night, when the apartment got quiet, I'd lie in bed replaying every small moment, every almost touch, every glance that lingered too long. The hardest part was how good we were at acting like nothing was happening. One night, we were watching some dumb show, both of us half bored, half on our phones. Kyle stretched, his arm dropping along the back of the couch, just behind my shoulders. We stayed like that for an entire episode. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. I kept waiting for him to pull away, to laugh it off, to break the tension. He didn't. I didn't either. When the episode ended, he stood up abruptly. "I'm gonna shower," he said, voice a little too casual. "Yeah," I replied. "Same." We didn't look at each other. The bathroom door closed. The sound of the shower starting filled the apartment, and I just sat there, staring at the blank TV screen, realizing something terrifying. We both knew, and we were both choosing not to say it. And somehow, pretending nothing was happening felt way more exhausting than the truth ever could have been. Pretending was going to break one of us. By the end of that week, the pretending started to feel physical, like carrying a weight in my chest that never went away. Kyle became quieter around me, not distant, almost the opposite. He was careful, every word measured, every movement slightly restrained, like he was afraid of crossing some invisible line we'd never actually drawn. That scared me more than if he'd just acted normal. Friday night, we ended up drinking together, which in hindsight was a terrible idea. It wasn't planned. We were both home, both tired, both hovering in the kitchen like we didn't quite know what to do with ourselves. Kyle cracked a beer, offered me one out of habit, then hesitated for half a beat before handing it over. Another pause, another almost moment. We drank standing up, leaning against opposite counters, talking about nothing. Work, the gym, some movie he wanted to see. I kept telling myself to relax, to stop reading into everything, but my body didn't listen. After the second beer, Kyle loosened up a little. He laughed more. His shoulders dropped. He leaned closer when he talked like he used to before all this started. At some point, he said, "You ever feel like things are weird lately?" My heart slammed so hard I almost missed a beat. I shrugged, aiming for casual. "Weird how?" He stared at the floor, jaw tightening. I don't know. Just off. There it was. The opening. The chance. Could have said it then. Could have asked him what he meant. Could have admitted I felt it too. Instead, fear won. Probably just stress. I said. Life's kind of a mess right now. Kyle nodded slowly, like he was disappointed but not surprised. Yeah, probably. That was the moment I hated myself a little. Later, we ended up on the couch again. Same spots as always. Same stupid show playing in the background. Except this time, I noticed everything: the way his knee bounced, the way his fingers flexed like he didn't know what to do with them, the way his gaze kept drifting to me and then snapping away. Seconds passed. Long, unbearable seconds. Then he pulled back like he'd been burned and stood up so fast the couch shifted. I am gonna get some air, he said, already heading for the balcony. The door slid shut behind him. When he came back inside, he didn't sit down. Just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes fixed somewhere over my shoulder. Aaron, he said quietly. My chest tightened. Yeah. He hesitated. I could see it all over his face, the conflict, the restraint, the fear. For a moment, I thought he was finally going to say it. Whatever it was. Instead, he swallowed and said, You ever think about moving out? That one hurt. I blinked. What? Not like soon or anything, he rushed to add. Just, eventually, you know, new place, new phase. I forced a laugh that sounded wrong even to my own ears. Damn, you sick of me already? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a split second all the walls dropped. His eyes were too honest, too intense. No, he said softly, that's not it. Then he looked away again, and the moment shattered. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, realizing something I hadn't wanted to admit. We weren't pretending nothing was happening anymore. We were pretending we didn't know exactly what it was. That question stayed with me for days. You ever think about moving out? Kyle didn't bring it up again. Neither did I. But it hovered between us, unspoken, like a quiet threat. Not angry, not hostile, just sad. In a way neither of us wanted to look at too closely. We fell into this strange rhythm after that. Polite, careful, almost professional, like two people trying not to bump into furniture in a dark room. Mornings were the worst. We used to joke over coffee, steal each other's food, argue about music while getting ready for work. Now we moved around each other with this cautious choreography. One of us would wait in our room until the other left the kitchen. If we crossed paths, it was brief. Neutral smiles. Safe topics. How's work? Busy. Gym later. Probably. That was it. And yet, every so often, the mask slipped. Like the morning I came out of my room half asleep and caught Kyle standing at the counter. He froze when he heard me, turned slowly. For a second, neither of us spoke. Morning, he said finally. Hey. My eyes dropped instantly, like looking at him too long would give me away. When I glanced back up, he was already grabbing a shirt, movement stiff, rushed. I'll be out in a sec, he muttered, disappearing into his room. I stood there alone, heart racing, wondering how something so small could feel like such a loss. The tension built quietly. No explosions, no confrontations, just pressure. One night, close to midnight, I couldn't sleep. I heard Kyle moving around in the living room, the low hum of the TV barely audible. After 10 minutes of staring at the ceiling, I gave up and went out there. He was sprawled on the couch, lights off, eyes fixed on the screen but clearly not watching. Couldn't sleep either? I asked. He startled slightly, then relaxed when he saw it was me. Guess not. I sat on the opposite end of the couch, leaving more space than necessary. The silence between us was thick but not uncomfortable, almost familiar, like old times, just warped. After a while, he spoke. You ever wish you could rewind stuff? I turned my head toward him. Like what? He shrugged, eyes still on the screen. Just moments. Before things got complicated. My throat tightened. Yeah, I said quietly. All the time. That got his attention. He looked at me then. Really looked, and something raw flickered across his face. For what it's worth, he said, voice low. I didn't mean that thing about moving out, like pushing you away. I swallowed. Okay. I just didn't know how else to say that this dash, he gestured vaguely between us. This is messing with my head. My heart pounded. You're not the only one. The words hung there, fragile. Kyle exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. I hate that we're pretending, he admitted. It feels dishonest. And I hate that too. I nodded. Same. Another pause. This one felt different. Heavier. Like we were standing at the edge of something. I don't want to screw this up, he said. You matter too much to me. That did it. That cracked something open in my chest. You matter to me too, I said. That's why this is so hard. We sat there in silence after that, closer now, though neither of us moved. Nothing happened. And somehow that made it harder. Because in that quiet, with the truth finally hovering just beneath the surface, I realized something else. Pretending wasn't just about fear anymore. It was about knowing that once we stopped pretending, there was no going back. The next day was Saturday, and that somehow made everything worse. Weekdays at least came with distractions, work, schedules, excuses not to deal with what was sitting between us. Saturdays were just us and too much time. Kyle suggested we go grocery shopping together like we used to. Casual. Normal. I almost said no just to protect myself, but I didn't. I missed him. Missed us. The car ride was quiet at first. Not awkward exactly, just restrained. Music playing low. Windows cracked. His hand resting on the steering wheel, thumb tapping absent-mindedly in time with the song. At a red light, I glanced over without thinking. He was already looking at me. Not surprised. Not guarded. Just open. He didn't look away this time. Something in my chest shifted, slow and heavy. Okay, he said suddenly, exhaling through a half-laugh. This is getting ridiculous. My heart jumped. What is this? He said, gesturing between us again, sharper this time. The not talking, the tiptoeing. I feel like I'm going insane. I swallowed. Then stop tiptoeing. He tightened his grip on the wheel. You say that like it's easy. It's not, I said quietly. But pretending hasn't exactly been working either. The light turned green. He didn't move right away, just stared ahead, jaw clenched, like he was arguing with himself. Finally, he drove. The grocery store was busy, loud, full of people who had no idea my entire world felt like it was balancing on a thread. We walked side by side through the aisles, close but not touching. Every so often our hands brushed when we reached for the same thing. Every time it sent a jolt through me. At one point, he laughed at something I said, really laughed, and it hit me how much I'd missed that sound. How much I'd missed him being him around me. Without thinking, I said, I miss you. He stopped walking. I froze, realizing what I'd said, panic rushing in too late to stop it. I mean, I don't dash. Kyle turned to face me fully, cart abandoned in the middle of the aisle. His expression wasn't shocked. It was relieved. I miss you too, he said. The words felt dangerous, real. People pushed past us, annoyed, impatient, but I barely noticed. I don't want to lose you, he continued, voice low. But I also don't know how to keep doing this without saying what's actually going on. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Then say it. He searched my face, like he was making sure I was real, that this wasn't another almost moment that would disappear if he moved too fast. I think about you all the time, he said finally. And I don't know when that stopped being normal best friend stuff and turned into this. I felt exposed and seen all at once. Same. Another beat. I'm scared, he admitted. Because once we say it out loud, it changes things. I nodded. Yeah, but not saying it is changing things too. That landed. We stood there in the cereal aisle, surrounded by boxes and noise and strangers, having the most important conversation of my life like it was the most natural thing in the world. Kyle took a small step closer. Not touching, just closer. Tell me the truth, he said, even if it messes everything up. My chest felt tight, but steady. I'm in love with you, I said. For a split second, everything went silent. Then Kyle exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. Yeah, he said softly. Me too. He didn't kiss me. Not there. Not then. But the way he looked at me open, unguarded, scared and sure all at once, I knew something had finally shifted. We weren't pretending anymore, and there was no going back. We didn't say much after that. Kyle cleared his throat, grabbed the card again, and muttered, "We should probably finish shopping." His ears were red. That almost broke me. "Yeah," I said. "Food first. Emotional crisis later." He laughed, short and nervous, but real. God, I'd missed that. The rest of the trip felt surreal. We walked closer now, shoulders brushing on purpose this time. Every so often, our eyes met and we'd both look away, smiling like idiots. Nothing dramatic had happened, and yet everything had changed. In the car on the way home, the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was charged, anticipatory. Kyle parked, turned the engine off, and didn't get out. "So," he said, staring at the steering wheel. "Rules?" I frowned slightly. "Rules? Yeah, like, what happens now?" He glanced at me. "We live together. We're best friends. And apparently we're also in love," which still wrapping my head around that. I smiled softly. "Same. I don't want to rush you," he continued, "or screw this up, or make you feel like this has to turn into something physical just because we said it out loud." That mattered. More than he probably realized. I nodded. "Thank you. But," he added, voice quieter, "I also don't want to pretend anymore." My pulse jumped. "Me neither." He finally looked at me fully then. Really looked. No walls. No jokes. Just Kyle. "Can I do something?" he asked. My throat was dry. "Yeah." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted to. His hand settled over mine, warm and solid. Just holding. Nothing else. Felt grounding. Like coming home. We stayed like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, letting the reality of us sink in. Inside the apartment, everything looked the same. Same couch. Same kitchen. Same dumb magnet crooked on the fridge. But the energy was different. We put the groceries away together, brushing past each other in the small space. Both hyper-aware but relaxed in a way we hadn't been in weeks. When we finished, neither of us moved. Kyle leaned back against the counter. "I don't want to sleep pretending anymore." My heart skipped. "Okay. I don't mean dash," he stopped, shook his head, smiling nervously. "I mean not literally. I mean emotionally. I don't want to go back to separate rooms and act like we didn't just change everything." "So what do you want?" He took a breath. "I want to sit with you. Talk. Maybe fall asleep on the couch like we used to. Just be us. But honest." That sounded perfect. We ended up curled up at opposite ends of the couch. "You okay?" he murmured. "Yeah," I whispered. "You?" "Yeah." The next morning was quiet in a way that felt earned. I woke up first, light creeping in through the blinds, the apartment still and peaceful. For half a second, I panicked thinking maybe I dreamed everything. The confession, the honesty, the way we'd fallen asleep tangled together on the couch. Fully clothed, emotionally wrecked, but calm. Then I felt it. Kyle's arm was still around me. I didn't move. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, letting it sink in. Not the idea of him, not the fear, just the fact that he was here, that we'd crossed something together and hadn't broken. Eventually, he stirred. "Mornin'," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. I smiled without thinking. "Morning." He blinked a few times, then tensed slightly, like the memories were catching up to him all at once. I felt his arm loosen, giving me space. "You okay?" I asked softly. He exhaled and looked down at me. "Yeah, just checking if this is real." I shifted so I was facing him. Still real. That smile he gave me then, small, relieved, a little overwhelmed, was worth every second of pretending we'd gone through. We made coffee together, moving around each other more naturally than I'd expected. No flinching, no forced distance, just awareness, a comfortable one. At the table, Kyle wrapped both hands around his mug and said, "I've been thinking." "That's never ominous," I said. He snorted. "Shut up. I mean about us." I sobered. "Okay. I don't want this to turn into something we rush because we're finally allowed to want it," he said carefully. "But I also don't want to keep us in some weird limbo." I nodded. "Same. So maybe we date?" he said, clearly choosing the word on purpose. "Like actually, take it slow. See how it feels without pretending it's anything else." Something warm settled in my chest. "I'd like that." "Good," he said, then hesitated. And I think, if it starts to feel like too much or scary or confusing, we promise to say it. No disappearing into our heads. I reached across the table and covered his hand. Deal. That night, we went out for dinner. Nothing fancy. Just a place down the street we'd been to 100 times. But it felt different walking in together, sitting across from each other, knowing we weren't hiding. At one point, Kyle reached across the table and brushed his thumb over my knuckles, absent-minded, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I looked up. He was watching me, soft and steady. What? I asked. He smiled. Just, glad it's you. I swallowed. Yeah, me too. Later, back at the apartment, standing in the hallway outside our rooms, there was a pause. Not awkward, just new. Kyle shifted his weight. So, good night. I nodded. Good night. He leaned in before I could overthink it. Not rushed, not hungry, just careful and sure. Our first kiss was quiet. No fireworks, no desperation, just warmth, familiarity, relief. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Okay, he whispered. That felt right. I smiled. Yeah, it did. We went to our separate rooms that night. And for the first time since all this started, pretending wasn't the hard part anymore. Waiting was. And somehow that felt like the best kind of problem to have. The days after that settled into something quietly incredible. Not dramatic, not explosive, just right. Kyle and I started calling them dates, mostly to make each other smile. Coffee after work. Long walks at night when the apartment felt too small to hold all the things we weren't saying yet. Cooking together and stealing bites off each other's plates like we always had. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me, really watching me, like he was still surprised he was allowed to. Every time, my chest would tighten in that good, terrifying way. One night, about a week in, we were lying on my bed, fully clothed, lights low, just talking. Nothing heavy. Stories from college. Dumb memories. The kind of conversations that make hours disappear. Kyle went quiet mid-sentence. I turned my head. What? He stared at the ceiling. Can I ask you something without you thinking I'm freaking out? I smiled. I promise nothing. He exhaled. When did you know? When did you realize you felt something for me? I thought about it. Really thought. Honestly, I said, I don't think there was a single moment. It was more like, one day I realized you were the person I wanted to tell everything to first. Good stuff, bad stuff, didn't matter. He swallowed. Yeah, that tracks. What about you? I asked. He turned toward me then, propping himself up on one elbow. When I caught myself getting jealous over nothing. Over guys you didn't even like. I laughed softly. You hit it well. Barely, he said. I kept telling myself it was just protective friend stuff. Turns out I was lying to myself. A few months later, I realized something had changed, not in a dramatic movie scene way, but in the quietest, most meaningful one. We were doing laundry. That was it. That was the moment. Kyle was leaning against the washing machine, scrolling on his phone, one sock hooked around his finger like always. I was folding shirts, half listening as he complained about his coworker for the third time that week. Normal, boring, perfect. And suddenly it hit me. There was no tension anymore. No tightness in my chest. No fear of saying the wrong thing. No pretending. Just us. I looked at him and said, without thinking, hey. He glanced up. Yeah, I'm really happy, I said. He studied my face for a second, like he always did when something mattered. Then he smiled, not the teasing one, not the careful one, the real one. Me too, he said. I was hoping you felt that. That night, we sat on the balcony with beers, the city humming below us, his arm warm around my shoulders. The air was cool and the future didn't feel scary anymore. Felt open. I used to think the hardest part was admitting I loved you, he said quietly. I leaned into him. What is it now? Trusting that it won't disappear, he admitted. That we won't wake up one day and realize we imagined it. I tilted my head up to look at him. We didn't imagine this. He nodded. I know. I just never had something this solid before. I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. Then we protect it. Together. He squeezed back. Together. Later, lying in bed, his breathing slow and steady beside me, I thought back to those weeks when we both pretended nothing was happening, when every glance felt dangerous, when silence hurt more than words, and I understood something I wish I'd known sooner. The hardest part wasn't falling in love with Kyle. It was surviving the moment before, when we both knew, and neither of us was brave enough to say it. But we were brave enough eventually. And now, every ordinary moment, laundry, grocery runs, late-night talks felt like proof that choosing honesty hadn't ruined us. It had saved us. Because loving Kyle wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was steady. And after all that pretending, that was everything I'd ever wanted.